just making sure that we're ironing out the kinks, and I think we are live with this game. So Dave, from his opening rack of he plays foully and he leaves an eye on his rack, absolutely the best play for Dave here. And we are going to see Dave, who is just remarkably consistent with his play finding and his word finding. We are going to see really, really high level play from Dave here. So we're going to try to translate that into, what is he thinking? What is a player at his caliber? And I should also mention is Dave is a multi-time national champion. I think 2 or 3 times, something like that. I think 2-time U.S. national champion, and has come so close to winning the world championship many times as well. So really,
Absolutely.
truly one of the best players in the world here.
And then we have Jason Ubeika, who again is very, very strong with his word knowledge. I feel like he can play really, really well in key positions, and we'll hopefully see some of that here. He has a very awkward rack to start things off. What would you do here?
Yeah, this is frustrating. This is one of these situations where, again, I alluded to it earlier. If you watched my YouTube video on the queue, you will see that this is the exact type of situation that is so frustrating to have the queue. You even have an open U on the board. And I do like this play of Bosk for Jason simply to get that Q off of his rack without exchanging. The only problem is he had to spend his
Ooh.
S, and Dave manages to draw a beautiful bingo through the E of Fowley of Swirlier. So really, really strong start here for
Yeah,
Dave
if that
Wiegand.
was blocked, I mean, you might be hurting yourself here. Well, mentally, I would say, if you're Jason, because if you didn't want to play your Q, there was the option of playing OBE, making OI and BE over top Fowley,
Hmm.
and just to see that Swirlier comes down without that E, that rack for Dave is terrible. Really, nothing to do with that rack, but the E just totally saved him. But we see a quick comeback play of G that looks really good.
Yeah,
Maybe
G'd
maybe
looks
queued instead, but
G'd or Q'd, I was going to say, look roughly equally good in that
I like
spot.
getting rid of the G.
Yes. So the nice thing about getting rid of the G is, as Josh will be the first to tell you on his channel, which I might add, this would be a great chance to do a little plug for Josh. If you're enjoying this broadcast and enjoying Scrabble on Twitch, following my channel is a great start, but following Josh's channel as well will help him and help us grow Scrabble on Twitch. So really, really fun. I love watching Josh's streams. But on his stream, he has a G command where I'm not sure how sarcastic he really is when he says the G is the worst tile. So getting rid of
Sarcastic.
see, it's hard to tell with this guy. But
This no, it's no sarcasm.
the nice thing about playing G'd is not only do you not really love to keep the G, but if ever a G is dangerous, it's in that position on the board where a bingo to the upper left triple will have to end in G. And that's where the G likes to go in the words where it appears. It likes to be that final letter. So Jason putting the G there in hopes of eventually getting closer in this game by putting an ING bingo on that part of the board.
All right, so this was a miss for sure. We saw in chat the suggestion of at G3 you can see the letters and the numbers. Those are the coordinates we use in Scrabble. So if you put the G3, you can see that spot next to EW. Dave could
Beautiful.
have played HUH, forming the interesting
Beauty.
four-letter word BUDI, which would have scored a lot more than Hut. Would have left better tiles. So that was definitely what we were talking about. The board vision might not be as strong in these online events.
Yeah, that's totally true. That spot to put that U between the B and the DI is a very tricky little insertion play there that does take a little bit of creativity to see. I definitely expect Dave to see spots like that, and I do think he saw that he had a T to hook onto Bosk, and he probably simply assumed that whatever his play was, the best play had to be with that T hook simply because it scores so well, right? Like Bosk is a really high scoring word already to hook onto. So Dave probably just saw that and said, all right, I've got a T. My best play has to be a Bosquet play, and slightly overlooked the better insertion play of Hue and Beauty with just HUH in that spot. That's almost as big of a mistake as you'll ever see Dave make, and it's really not a grievous mistake either. And we can
Oh,
see
he
he
sees the
sees
spot
it
now.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
he sees it now. And my guess is he probably realizes now, oh, maybe I had a better play than Hut on that last turn. And he's more than accounted for that mistake now with a beautiful insertion play. Look at that. All 3-letter words are longer with that play.
Yeah, really nice play, and also an added benefit that playing HUH, making Hugh didn't have, was blocking that G that we were mentioning. Does suit the IN combo very, very well.
Great point.
So Jason's not going to be able to get that ING bingo down. He is still behind by 60 points, so he's looking to open some other parts of the board. First, he plays Jutes just to get rid of that J, though.
Yeah, I mean, that was a difficult position for him. I think that play of Jutes was probably the best he could do, which the rough thing about that play, it scores 28, which is a solid score, but it kept the letters of C, E, G, G behind for Jason, which that is really, really bad for getting a bingo down on his next turn. But I mean, it's probably better chances than if he were to have kept his J on his rack. So he was not, he didn't have very good options on that turn. I think he made the best of a bad lot of plays there.
Yeah, and if we go to the play before HEIL, the new two-letter word in the international lexicon, "zay," making that play for 46 points, forming ZO and ES, is basically pretty much forced. You got to score those points, and even if you're keeping the G, U, and the C, the points are well worth it there. So we saw that he drew from the CUGET leave. He drew another G and he drew the J. So that's a very, very clunky rack. And yeah, playing Jutes, scoring some points is definitely necessary there. We have a nice question in chat. Is it worth pointing out that the time control is a bit faster than normal? Yes, absolutely. Will, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's typically we were alluding before in the broadcast just a little bit earlier that online play does have these key differences from live play. You don't have as much bookkeeping to do. You don't have to write the score down. The computer keeps track of that for you. You don't have to keep track of the unplayed letters. It keeps track of that for you too. So to account for that, typically online games use a little bit of a faster time control. There's just less time allotted to each player. The idea of that being, well, they don't have to do as much, bookkeeping. Let's shorten the length of the game so we can play more. But the side effect of that actually is that we typically, I'd say the most common time control in live play is definitely 25 minutes. That's the standard. And in online
Per
play,
side.
yeah, per player, I should say. Thank you. But in online play, it's typically 15 minutes is a very common competitive standard. So 10 fewer minutes to work with. It does force you to take some shortcuts and do a little bit less in-depth calculations. You don't have as much time to, for example, when you have a blank, you don't have as much time to carefully go through each letter of the alphabet. And really, it is something that the elite players, even players like Dave Wiegand, have to cut some corners sometimes. And you're not going to play quite as well as you would play with 25 minutes to work with. As we see Jibe go down for Jason,
After
and look at the score. I mean, this is a really close game.
Yeah, I mean, one was a really, really gutsy play by Dave opening that big triple spot.
Oh,
Like so
yeah.
many letters hook onto one, and it did not pay off. He was just trying to bingo next turn with his EIST. Those are really great bingo tiles,
He
but
drew
he ended
three
up drawing three
vowels.
vowels, and now he's only ahead by 31 points. And if he continues to draw vowels, we might see some equalizing play by Jason Ubeika here. I also wanted to mention, actually, it's not only that it's 15 minutes per side, there's only 1 minute of overtime allotted per player. And in tournaments, you're actually allowed to go overtime up to 10 minutes. So you can take up to 35 minutes on your side to play the game, whereas here the maximum is 16. So you actually have 19 minutes more to work with in a tournament. But
Yeah,
every
that's
time you
true.
go overtime by 1 minute, every minute you lose 10 points. So it's really not a good idea. After 9 minutes, this 90 points you've already lost. Um, but yeah, sometimes we'll see games going really, really far overboard. But I think the idea of only 1 minute overtime here is really to get things moving along as quickly as possible, to have games finishing at around the same time.
Yeah, and I do think that in general, most Scrabble players will, if you're given a chance between more games at a slightly quicker time control or fewer games at a slower one online, I think most players will just want to play more games. So slightly speeding up the clock of the game, it lets the players get more games in, and I do think it makes for a little bit more lively of a broadcast experience as well. As the clock goes down within reason, it starts to be just the action a little bit quicker as far as a broadcast, a viewer perspective. So it's a balance to find that right amount of time for players, spectators, and producers as well. So okay, we
Higher
should
come down.
see. We should see. Yeah, bingo be played. Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Beautiful play right there. So Dave continuing to try to dump his vowels. He plays hioi, an obscure word that you will only see in the Collins Dictionary games that we're broadcasting today. If you're a player that's only ever used the North American word list, that's an odd looking word to you, but a great vowel dumping play by Dave. But Jason responding with varicose to take a solid lead in a game that looked like Dave was up quite solidly early on.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly what I was worried about. I mean, I'm not rooting for Dave like some of you in chat are, but drawing those vowels, not being able to play isolate on the board that yeah, on the board we have here, it's not really great for bingos. So yeah, having to open the board, you open yourself up to this sort of thing happening, which is a really bad case scenario for Dave because now that he has hundreds, probably, I don't know if hundreds, but tons of choices of bingos with this incredible rack, he's gonna have to deal with that spot that Varicose opened. Um, any play coming down through that E in Varicose is just gonna score maybe 40, upwards of 40 points. So after a bingo of maybe 70, 80 points, Dave is it's not gonna be ahead by that much. And a 40-point play, it'll bring Ubeika right back into the game.
for sure. So basically, Dave is this he was so close to bingoing on Hioi with that leave of AELST, one of the great 5-tile leaves. And again, what we refer to as a leave, very simple. Whenever you make a play, the letters you still have on your rack for next turn, that's what we call your leave. So Dave, with that beautiful leave of AELST, gonna be so many bingos that you draw after that. Ironically, he draws R blank, which is almost overkill.
100%, yeah.
He was going to bingo so much of the time, just with those 5 tiles plus any 2 tiles out of the bag. The blank just puts it way over the top and actually slightly decreases the score of his bingo because it's only 1 point. But ultimately, for Dave, it's almost never the case as a Scrabble player that you are unhappy to see the blank tile, if only because it means your opponent can't get it. So, still a cause for a celebration for Dave to draw that blank. But wow, this we're gonna see very quickly. Dave bingos and Jason responds with an X play. I actually didn't even get a chance to see other options he might have had there, but Vox certainly seems reasonable. And yeah, it is the strongest play for Jason there. And Jason has taken a 26-point lead.
Yeah,
Didn't see
and
that
then look
coming.
at this draw for Dr. Bing, for Dave, like 3 A's. Um, maybe close to some stuff, like, what am I thinking of? There's, like, a para word, maybe. But, yeah, nothing here that plays, I think, and he's gonna have to try and get rid of 2 of those. I don't think he's gonna score enough to take the lead back again, so
Yeah, this is deceptively not a great scoring board for Dave or for either player, really. And he makes what I think is probably the best play there of Fa. But wow, Jason has drawn the second blank, and I have every confidence that he's going to get a bingo down. Something here hooking RE, and he plays Denning.
beautiful find.
Great job. So
3 ends.
Jason is on the verge of coming up with an upset against one of the strongest players in the country, Dave Wiegand.
But we know from experience it's not over. Dave just
Ooh,
gives it a little challenge just to make sure that
yeah,
Denning
let's talk
isn't
about
a
that.
made-up word. Okay.
So yeah, Josh, Dave challenged it, but he didn't lose his turn. That's because we just have slightly different challenge rules in both of our dictionaries. Isn't that true?
So yeah, as we were saying earlier, we're gonna try to alternate between the international games in the CSW19 lexicon and the North American games in the NWL lexicon. And the difference between those two lexica is not only the words that are contained, but it's also the challenge format. Uh, because there are so many more words in the international lexicon, there was a decision many years ago to make it the standard to have 5 point challenge, which means every challenge you make only costs you 5 points if the word is valid. So in double challenge, you make a wrong challenge and you lose your turn. In 5 point challenge, you make a wrong challenge, you lose 5 points. It's a much different rule, which allows you to challenge words you're almost certain are valid, but you would rather not they be valid, such as Denning.
Right. Yeah, sometimes in those cases you just want to give a play that, really high scoring play that you almost just wish would not have hit the board. You might challenge that and give it an extra 5 points just to make absolutely sure that it's not valid. But
Look
I
at
will
this.
say, yeah, Sidewinder pointed this out in the chat. Hi to Sidewinder, by the way, very strong player in his own right. A great play by Jason of paunches extending he's. So that C blending in so well with that HES on the board to create a plural of a CH word of paunches for 42 points, running Jason's lead up into the 80-point range, where it's actually going to be next to impossible for Dave to win this game. With only one tile left in the bag. This is going
I
to
think
be,
it's over. Yeah, I
yeah.
really I think that's it. I think that play of Paunches was just the death blow. I don't know. I don't see how Dave can come back from this.
So, yeah, the problem for Dave is simply that he's down by enough points that he really, really needs to bingo. But with only, you can see above on the lower right, you see the score of the game. And right above that, you can see the unseen tiles, which are, from Dave's point of view, AIK, MNOTW. The issue is with only one tile in the bag, even if Dave plays off one tile to try and draw a bingo on his rack to go out with, Jason's up by enough that that one tile play that Dave makes won't score enough. All Jason will have to do is score 20 or 30 points anywhere else on the board, and his lead will be insurmountable, even to a bingo in most cases. So this does look like an upset special for Jason Ubeika over Dr. Bing, Dave Wiegand here.
I'd like to
Uh,
mention something about the play of Paunches. Now, it's not often that you really want to open a big triple word spot. You can see in the 1A spot is pretty big. You can score a lot of points on that triple. But in this specific position, you're leaving only one tile in the bag. Basically, Paunches will kill any chance of your opponent winning the game because you're pulling ahead by 70 points, 70 plus points. And if they just play one tile off, because as Will mentioned, they have to draw a bingo and they don't want to empty the bag and leave themselves with less than 7, you can just play under or atop Paunches, score 30 plus points, and there's no coming back from that. So Paunches not only scored a ton of points, it also basically ended the game on the spot, I would say.
Yeah, it's just a beautiful play for so many reasons, all of what Josh said, and then just the simple just creativity of extending HES already on the board with that C. That's really high level stuff right there by Jason. So we were talking up Dave Wiegand, and I have no doubt that when all is said and done in the Collins division, we will see Dave Wiegand's name at the top or near the top of the standings. But Jason, easily a strong enough player to put together a game like this, where I do see that that Squish in the chat. Hello to Squish, by the way. Maybe Josh wants to say hi too. Says Jason outplayed Dave in this game, and I think that's actually relatively accurate. I think that you could easily make that case in this game. So Jason, easily a strong enough player to pull a game like this out. But that's why we play 20 games in a tournament like this. And ultimately, some tournaments we play 30 or more games, is to let the cream rise to the top and let somebody like Dave continue to get cracks at winning games that only he can win.
I'd actually, yeah. Also, hi Squish. Yes, I'd like to mention. Squish also mentioned to the fish for daytime. If it's possible for our producer to go a turn back, um, and we can maybe see if that would even work. Fish for daytime means playing off the D. Um, he had a rack of DDEIMTY. If you play off the D and you draw the A, you draw into daytime. So the only real way to win for Dave was to play off the D and draw that word daytime, but it still wouldn't have worked because a play of walk atop paunches would have just scored 40 points and it would have ended the game on the spot. So I think yeah, we can bring it back. I think Dave made the right choice by just playing 6 tiles off, knowing he just can't win this game. And
Yeah,
we see
that's,
the
I
ending play.
mean, there's definitely that tension at times as we see Jason finishing off this win. And I'm going to go and make sure that we get some good options for the NWL round 3 pairings for you guys.
True.
But I just want to, add to that point, which is there is this tension sometimes of making a play that requires your opponent to make a huge error if you're going to win the game, or making a play that might work out better for you mathematically, even if you're going to lose the game for sure, you'll lose the game by less, right? Because we do use margin of victory as a tiebreaker in Scrabble. So in games where your winning chances are astronomically small, sometimes you might actually do better for yourself by limiting that loss, the margin of your loss, as much as you can, as opposed to trying to get that tiny, tiny sliver of a chance for a win. Some people don't like that. Some people would prefer to just go for the win at all costs, but we do use that tiebreaker. Josh, where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I really if I'm playing someone like you will, if I'm playing a top player, I will definitely give up. Although I'm less prone to giving up against lower rated opponents. And it probably does cost me a lot of differential, as you were mentioning. I do try to win at all costs to probably to my own yeah, it's probably bad, honestly. I end up losing a lot of differential and maybe losing chances at winning tournaments because I'm just trying to induce a mistake. So I think me and Squish in the chat, I think we do that a bit too much. It's basically an insult actually to our opponents. If if Dave were to like fish for daytime, try to go for daytime there, you could just be like, really, dude, like you trying to win, like you think I'm some schmuck. I don't know.